Hey everyone, so the new patch is just live now. We have the new champion coming out and a few balance changes that are really going to shake things up. So we already did a first look at the changes on the PB about a week ago, but this video is more focused on the big stuff that you really do have to know before you jump into game today and the things you should look out for. This is kind of the old school way I used to do stuff, like used to do the patch videos, so please let me know if you like it, or if you don't like it, that's also fine. This is what the patch actually looks like in terms of balance. Now, some of these are relatively small buffs. We have a lot of number changes and tweaks and stuff like that. Alawi and Udyr are the biggest buffs, but most of the nerfs are big enough to do some damage and change the meta a little bit. To start with, though, we have this new champion, Keanu, coming out. I think I said that right. Quick rundown of the new champion, basically, but there will be a proper guide out tomorrow. So the whole thing revolves around elements. She can pick these up with her dash with her W after targeting a river, a brush, or a wall, and this kind of changes how her spells work. So her passive is very simple, and next basic attack or ability deals bonus damage. You can't proc again on the same target for 25 seconds, but it is instantly refreshed when gathering an element. The Q slashes forward in a line. It deals full damage to the first unit and 75% against any others past that. Now again, the cooldown can be refreshed when gathering an element, and when she does have an element, the spell changes and consumes the current one. When it has an element, it's going to detonate in a line. The river means that she roots and she slows, so a crowd control. A wall is enemies below 50% max health take 60% bonus damage, so an execute basically. And the brush is leaving a grass trail behind her for 3.5 seconds, giving her invisibility and 20% bonus move speed, basically like a Kali's shroud, but it lasts until she attacks or exits. Most of her damage is going to revolve around that she can use her passive and Q twice. Effectively, if she hits them, then use her W to dash and refresh afterwards and use them again. Her W is just a dash that picks up the element basically, but it also has a passive part to it. While holding an element, you gain bonus attack speed, you deal bonus damage, and you gain out of combat move speed, so you can move around the map a little bit faster. Your E is another dash, actually dealing some damage as well, and you can also cast your Q during this to aim it at the dash target. Your ultimate finally sends a blast in a direction that knocks back. It also stops if it hits a wall. It creates a shockwave across any river or brush that it passes through, as well as around walls around the terrain, dealing damage and stunning enemies. A very simple version of this is that if she runs at you with the blue element, then she can crowd control. Brown is more damage and green is stealth. Once her W dash has been used, her damage output is a lot lower since she can't reset her passive or her Q, so if you run away and she has to use it to get to you, it's not as bad. She can't easily kill you after using all of her mobility, but fighting her in the river is probably the worst possible thing, where she can trigger all 3 of her elements. So moving into the balance stuff, and we have a big shake up to the bot lane meta. So we have 6 changes aimed at bot lane really. Nerfs to Pike, Sona, Karma, Sivir, and Essence Reaver, and then buffs to Tristana. We're going to start with the supports because they're very important in the lane phase. They kind of decide how the matchup is going to go in some way, and actually it's better to get a good support matchup most of the time than AD carries now. So Karma and Pike were really like lane phase bullies. For different reasons, Karma would poke you down with her damage, and Pike is going to try and kill you. And Sona is more the scaling option, so a bit different, and the nerfs really target that rather than anything early game. For Karma, her E move speed duration has been decreased, and this is a revert on the buff we had last patch. Basically, the shield lasts a bit longer than the speed duration now, like it did before, so it means that she won't be as safe, or her ally won't be as safe either. One thing to remember is that the poke is still going to be there, which is what makes Karma good, as well as the Q buff that we had last patch to increase the slow on that Q when it lands the normal version. So that is still going to be there, and Karma is still going to be relatively strong. Pike is getting a lot harsher of a treatment, so his Q cooldown decreased early. Stab damage bonus removed as well. Your W movement speed now scales, and your E no longer damages non-champions. This is aimed at lane Pike, and we'll get into that in a second, but unfortunately support gets hit as well because he can't help the AD shove or push the wave. That's actually pretty important, honestly, and his all-in damage himself is lower with the Q nerf. Especially early into the game, pushing is harder for an AD carry when they don't really have any ability ranks or any items behind them, so you need your support to help you in some cases to get a good base, and Pike just can't really at all anymore. Finally, for Sona, we have a Q Ori damage ratio decreased and an E bonus move speed ratio decreased as well. It makes her worse in team fights. It's not as good at buffing her team now. The bonus move speed is actually half what it used to be. You can't kite, you can't run away, you can't chase as well later. You're also buffing their damage by a little bit less as well. And this is really bigger than you think as well, because move speed is king late game. Those 3 are really strong support. So what it really means is that Nautilus and Lux are going to become even better than they already are, because these 2 are top 2 right now anyway, and their competition just got wrecked. Lux is insane right now. With Aftershock, as long as you proc it, you can't die very easily early, and you have a lot of damage, plus that tanky side together, so you're a complete package. You've got really good catch potential, a big shield, slows, like you have your sensor buff as well, and you're healing from Athene's. Karma was a worse matchup in 9.12, and she's going to get nerfed. Pike was also decent at catching Lux. Sona was good at outscaling, so in comparison, she's definitely better, and probably going to be number 1 in 9.13. Nami is also one that we might not expect, but should also get better just in comparison to these others. So another Another thing is the AD meta though, because Sivir is getting her AD growth, a mana regen lowered, plus W mana increased, and the W is the bigger part. That means that she can't AFK push as hard, especially early game. The mana cost means a lot more because you don't really have that much mana in the first place. If you do push, you won't have the mana to fight, and that's a really big thing here. You can punish her a bit harder, or you could use your spell shield to get your mana back, but then you can't block any damage. It isn't just that, it's also the Essence Reaver getting nerfed, going up 100 more gold, which is about 1 extra wave's worth of gold. So you have to stay for an extra wave now before you can buy it. This also brings it closer to Infinity Edge, which makes the choice of which to go for a little bit harder to make. It will affect stuff like Xayah as well, another really good AD, and even Lucian, who's actually building Essence Reaver a lot more now. We have also got a small buff to Tristana, more damage on a jump, and a few stat things, but basically when she jumps in, she is just going to be a bit stronger and a bit deadlier. Tristana is already actually quite a good champion right now, her very strong at lane phase, and able to dish out way more damage than others, especially like single target. I think Tristana will become much stronger in this patch. It'll probably come at meta as well, so definitely keep your eye on her because she can just snowball out of control. Part of the other reason as well that I like Tristana for this patch is if we look at the Sivir nerf, she was very good against stuff like Tristana and Varus as well because she can spell shield key damage. She can still do that, but she can't pin them under tower as easily now anyway, so the bot lane meta will 100% change. Draven and Jinx are my picks for the patch to start with. These will be better in comparison again because they're very strong and Sivir is getting nerfed. Also any AD though that rushes Infinity Edge and double Zeal now to get their crit strike. So like Jinx, Caitlyn and Tristana, those will be stronger. Essence Reaver, Infinity Edge and Zeal is now a way more expensive build than the double Zeal route, and it is actually quite a big difference. It means that you reach your 75% crit chance much cheaper, normally faster, and you spike harder if that makes sense as well, so that's going to be why they are stronger. Now, just to touch on Pike as well, they are deliberately taking out lane Pike. You can't really play it anymore. Even if you want to, you just can't push, right? You'll get pinned under your tower. You can't roam properly if you can't push either, which is one of Pike's biggest strengths. Your Q and your E no longer affect minions at all. I think your early levels will just be too weak now. So remember, this is not really a thing anymore. So Alawi is the update of the patch, really, like a mini gameplay update. It changes the way you kind of play her, and the first thing is that there is now a W minimum damage that has been added onto it, and it also applies to turrets. Your tentacles disappear faster when Alawi leaves, but they don't actually like go inactive straight away. Your E spirit and vessel duration decrease, and the time between tentacle attacks have been decreased as well. Finally, your ultimate tentacle cap have been increased when you finally use your ult. So she should be a lot stronger now after these changes, and that is the entire aim from Riot, by the way, not just my opinion. They are trying to buff her. If she does get a lead, then towers will get chunked way quicker, and that is more place and a bigger lead afterwards, which is pretty scary. Alawi is designed to be a mid-game champion, really. That's where win rates are best, where her ultimate gives her too much healing, but also she's just very tanky and hard to get through. The good thing about these changes is that in theory, it makes her stronger going into that part of the game, especially with the time between tentacles decreasing and the ultimate cap increasing. That's your like kind of in combat buffs, and then you have this stuff before the fight even starts where you have more gold because you should take more towers. Right now she's actually very good versus most melee bruisers, so Irelia, Aatrox and Renekton probably get worse this patch because Alawi is a good counter. She is winning those on average even before the changes come through, and then any tank is pretty much screwed because she can abuse them for free klepto. It might improve her bad matchups a little bit, like the harder ones are the more ranged ones, or the ones that can burst through her that she really like suffers in, or ones that are just too tanky or too strong in lane like a Garen. The other mini gameplay update that we have on this patch is to Udyr. So all his abilities can now be leveled to level 6 starting at level 16. Phoenix has also been buffed and Tiger has been nerfed. Now I say Tiger's nerfed, but actually it's a 10% AD ratio nerf, and then it's actually 5% higher if you put a 6 point into it late game. For most of the game though, you're using 10% less of the AD that you have, and so this kind of like Trinity Force style of bursting might fade away. Part of the reason it might fade away is because it'll open up Phoenix more as well, which is more consistent damage rather than burst and better farming. The cone damage is up 10 flat to start the game, but at rank 5 it's up 30, and then at rank 6 now, the new rank, that is 75 more than before. The cone is now 275 damage when you're constantly proccing this from 200 late game. That's actually quite a lot, I think. It can definitely open up a very different playstyle, a very different way of playing Udyr, so that could force Udyr back into the meta if this becomes really strong. That sounds really good, but it is like a slight nerf mid game with a 10% loss of the AD ratio, and other than that, it is a buff to late game, right? This is Udyr's win rate graph for the last patch, and as you can see, worst phase is later into the game, which is what this is going to be buffing. In general, this could mean weaker junglers, your Lee Sins, your Gragas, your Yi or Nidalee, anything like relatively squishy, I guess, early game is going to get invaded and absolutely blasted by Udyr. Even the picks that do well against him, like a Rammus, Trundle, tanks in general, actually, they might get outscaled more often now because he's just going to be better late game. That is on to one of our last points, and that is for tank itemization. So there is one change here to Randuin's Omen being 200 gold cheaper. The reason this is such a big deal is because Randuin's is really underrated. It is the crit counter, basically. The crit steal 20% less damage on a Randuin's target. It gives you health, which can help against every damage source. It gives you 60 armor anyway, and also when hit by basic attacks, it cripples the source's attack speed by 15% for 1 second. It might not sound like a lot, but if an AD carry is sitting there whacking you and you have 3000 health, in theory, they have to do 600 damage more to you to actually kill you through crit damage, right? Which is actually a lot, especially with the attack speed reduction. It is only 200 gold less, so it's not a huge change. It's not changing the item or anything, but I think if you buy this plus another armor item, like AD carries don't really have a good answer. Last Whisper doesn't really fit into crit builds until much later into the game, so this is a really good way to stop these AD carries mid-game and shut them down. Last thing is a quick mention for Rod of Ages. It's 100 gold cheaper now, and the reason this is big is because it is a scaling option, so getting it early into the game is really good. You get it about a wave earlier, so that's really nice, but on some champions like a Cassidy, for example, it's really big because you're trying to go for double scaling. It is more important for champions like that who go Rod of Ages and Archangels together. When you have both of those, it is so key to get them as soon as you can so they are both stacking at the same time. This, I think, makes it a bit more of a viable option, and it really improves their like mid to late game if you can get it early enough. So those are going to be the main changes that you kind of have to know about this patch. It's a very different way, honestly, for me to do this, focusing more on the effect of the changes rather than what's actually happening and the numbers and stuff. So let me know if you like it or not, but thank you for watching until the very end. And for now, I will leave you with robots.